Hey friends! Today we're diving into The Naked Gun 2025, a reboot of the iconic comedy packed with absurdity, action, and ridiculous situations. The movie kicks off in the middle of a bank heist. A guy with white hair sneaks into the vault, blows open a safe, and grabs a weird electronic device, passing it to his accomplice. The police have the area surrounded, but against their plans, a little girl strolls into the bank, ignoring everything. Turns out, she's a disguised old man, a total badass who crushes and chews up weapons, making short work of the robbers. Meet Frank Drebin, the special cop. Frank is a lieutenant detective in the Los Angeles Police Special Squad. He says the day after the bank heist was just another day. He woke up in his empty cop apartment, looked at a photo of his late cop wife, and held back his cop tears. Showing up at work, he meets his buddy Ed and the team. His boss tells him the bank robbers he sent to the ICU are now prepping a lawsuit, which could shut down the special squad. Now, Frank and Ed are pulled from the bank case and sent to investigate a crash in Malibu. Together, they stare at a portrait of the old detective Frank Drebin, who, it turns out, was the father of this movie's Frank. He's following in his dad's footsteps, and if his dad's proud, he should send a sign. Maybe an owl. They arrive at the crash site. The victim, Simon, seems to have driven his electric car off a cliff. They find an odd matchbox, but Frank, not digging too deep, suggests closing the case as a suicide. They haul the car out, head back to the precinct, and sip some coffee. Even though Frank's off the bank case, he's told the robbers didn't know who they were working for and were allowed to keep the cash. Seems they were after something else, so Frank volunteers to make one of them talk. While more coffee's being poured, he's told a woman's waiting in his office, Beth Davenport, a striking lady who instantly catches Frank's eye. Beth is Simon's sister, the guy from the crash. He offers her a seat, but Beth insists her brother didn't kill himself. Someone murdered him. Simon was a programmer working for Richard Kane, a genius behind electric cars. Frank tells her to leave the police work to him, which ticks Beth off, but she hands him a business card so he can reach her with any leads. Beth writes crime novels based on real stories she makes up. The talk's over, and he asks her to leave. But before going, Beth grabs the offered chair and drags it through the precinct. Simon's case sparks Frank's curiosity. He sips coffee on his way to an event hosted by Richard Kane, who's already waiting for him. Richard says Simon was a great employee, and he didn't expect his suicide. Though Frank clarifies it's only a suspected suicide, they check out an infrared therapy machine that boosts testosterone since, according to Richard, men's sperm counts are rock bottom. Richard wants to light up and pulls out a matchbox identical to Simon's. He explains it's from a social club for society's elite, a place where men can be men. They laugh and part ways. Richard makes a call, ordering a little gift for Frank, literally an electric car. Frank tests it out, accidentally crushes Ed's hands, wrecks a charging station, and frees a few prisoners. Frank interrogates a bank robber who swears he was never there. Frank asks to see his body cam footage. The video shows the robber at the crime scene and he starts talking. The client only wanted a specific safe cracked, one that belonged to Simon, meaning the bank heist and the crash are connected. Meanwhile, Richard speaks to his partners, saying that despite technological progress, the world hasn't improved. Many people, he claims, don't deserve their place and aren't like them. The current system's broken. It needs to be unplugged and rebooted. He unveils the device stolen from the safe, calling it the Total Hate Pulsar. He shows an experiment at a community center. When activated, the device emits a sound frequency that turns people into primal savages. The frequency will spread through all devices until the whole world's infected. They'll hide in a bunker. The goal? Survivors earn their place beside them, creating a blank slate world to become its new founders. Back to Frank. He learns the social club Richard mentioned is near Simon's crash site and heads there, while his electric car sort of handles things. He talks to a bartender who turns out to be the brother of the only white guy Frank shot in the back. The guy won't cooperate, so Frank slams his face into the table a few times. Turns out Simon was there the day of the crash, so they need to check the security cameras. Luckily, he runs into Beth, who's also there for answers. They chat, but Richard shows up, unaware Beth is Simon's sister. Frank asks for access to the cameras, but Richard refuses, citing club members' privacy. Richard invites Beth to dinner. She agrees, and Frank seizes the chance to get to the cameras. While they dine, Frank knocks out the guard at the camera room door. He sneaks in but tumbles down the stairs. Beth buys Frank time by grabbing a mic and singing. While this happens, Frank hands out slaps and gets to the cameras. He learns Richard and Simon talked the night before. Curiously, Simon was also in touch with an investigative journalist. Alarms blare and everyone scatters. Frank's boss summons him, and he shows up immediately. She says he can't touch Richard as he's too big a deal, but Frank insists he's a criminal tied to Simon's murder and the bank heist. Since he was barred from the bank case, he's suspended for 2 weeks. At his apartment, Beth greets him, eager to know what he found on the cameras. Getting no answer, she suggests dinner, and after some double entendre banter, they head inside. On a nearby rooftop, the white-haired guy spies on them. Frank shares how he became a widower. They decide to stuff the turkey in the dirty oven and close the curtains. They're watched via thermal imaging, making it look like they're fooling around with a dog, but it's just the angle. They end up kissing. Later, they head to a cabin for some romance. They build a snowman, bring it to life with a spell book, get closer, destroy the snowman when it tries to kill them, chop off its head, kiss, and return to the city. Later, Frank gets back to the case. He visits the journalist he saw on the cameras. Finding the door open, he steps in, walks into a pool of blood, and finds a knife with a note asking him to pick it up, which he does. Another note tells him to record his name and say, "I did it." He calls for the journalist, but no one answers. He enters a room and sees the journalist already dead. Realizing he's been set up, he tries to hide the body but decapitates it with a ceiling fan. The police arrive. Frank does a few flips, jumps out the window, and escapes in his electric car, which, he now knows, Richard controlled, causing Simon's crash. Frank has to get out before the car plunges into the sea. He shoots, shatters the windshield, but runs into balloons, bees, and another windshield. He hits every button, summons an old office assistant, and opens the door. Frank contacts Ed, who says there's a warrant out for him over the journalist's death, and the mayor, hearing about it, cut the squad's funding, shutting it down. Frank smashes his phone, borrows the cabbie's, calls Beth, spills everything, and smashes that phone too. He meets Beth, pours booze on his arm wound, and she, sprinkling salt on it, says her brother mentioned working on a therapeutic device to calm people, but feared it'd be used for the opposite. Frank thinks she faked loving him, though she insists she didn't. He's more annoyed that Beth hooked his VCR to the internet, wiping all his shows. Ed calls, Frank smashes the phone and heads to him, grabbing the VCR. Ed ID'd the white-haired guy from the start. They isolate him and make him talk. They cuff him to a gurney, convince him 3 days have passed, and news reports say Richard's arrested. Frank says Richard pinned Simon's and the journalist's murders on him. The guy doesn't buy it, but Frank scares him with prison fame. Convinced, he spills that Richard plans to use the WWFC fight to broadcast a frequency turning everyone savage with the device in the New Year's balls. After the confession, the walls fall. It was a trap. Cops ask if the confession's legal. Frank says sometimes you gotta break the law. Then the walls drop and he's arrested for illegal actions. He asks how they set it up so fast, and they say they threatened a contractor. The wall opens again, and they're arrested too. At the WWFC, Ed gives Frank earplugs to block the frequencies. Beth hits the VIP box, tries to shoot Richard, but her gun's empty. He takes her hidden weapons and a shotgun from her wig. Frank dives into the New Year's balls, accidentally activates them, gets his pants caught on ropes, and ends up pantless in front of everyone. He grabs the device and exits, not noticing his missing pants. Richard intercepts him and activates the device with a button. The crowd goes wild, chaos erupts. Ed knocks out some kids. Richard and his elderly partners flee on motorcycles, though most can't ride. Richard sets the device to make the crowd attack Frank, but he handles it without killing anyone. He chases Richard, but his car won't start. An owl appears, a sign from his dad. Frank grabs its legs and pursues Richard, sipping coffee. The owl poops on Richard, who crashes into a fountain. Frank, now played by Dave Bautista, keeps talking while the real Frank's in the bathroom. Richard wants to fight, but Frank knocks him out with one punch. He tries to fly off, but crashes into a pole. He's arrested. Beth aims at him, but Frank talks her down, saying murder, though thrilling, isn't worth her future. Beth shuts off the device. Everyone hugs. Richard's locked up. The couple kisses in an ambulance. An owl flies overhead. That's the end of the movie. Frank Drebin saves the day, disabling Richard's device, while his romance with Beth and the owl's flight wrap things up nicely. Chaos, humor, and absurdity. Everything we love about The Naked Gun is here. I really enjoyed the film. The goofy jokes, scenes like the New Year's balls, and Bautista's cameo are hilarious. Modern themes and nods to the original add charm, but the 1988 original is still better. Leslie Nielsen was unmatched, with perfect comedic timing. The new version's jokes sometimes try too hard to be relevant, losing the classic's simplicity. Still, it's a fun action comedy, perfect for a night with friends. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe. See ya!